Roger Ebert has long been at the forefront of film criticism. He and his longtime partner Gene Siskel have propelled the phrase "two thumbs up" into the American lexicon. This year, the review show they began together enters its 25th season on the air. Joining Ebert on the show as his new permanent co-host is a fellow Chicago Sun-Times columnist, Richard Roeper. I'm pleased to welcome them both to this table for the first time, and it's good to have Roger anytime, and welcome, Richard. It's a pleasure to meet you and have you here.
Thank you, Charlie. I appreciate that.
So why this guy?
You know, Richard and I have known each other and worked on the paper together for more than 10 years, and he's done a lot of radio and television in Chicago and written a lot about the movies for the Sun-Times, and we never had him on the show because he worked for the Sun-Times.
Yeah.
And my wife said, "Why don't you have Richard on?" And I said, "He works for the Sun-Times." And she said, "So what?" So we had him on.
The point is, for those who don't know, you work for the Chicago
Sun-Times. Yeah, I work for the Sun-Times too. She said, "So what?" So we had him on. After the show, it just felt right.
Yeah. And that's
it just felt right. So we had him on 3 or 4 more times, 5 or 6 more times, and he seemed to be like the obvious choice.
Yeah. That's exactly what it has to be. It has to feel right for you. I mean, you know what it's like to feel right. You know what chemistry is about. And either it does or it doesn't.
We had guest hosts on for about a year and a half after Gene's death. And Mary Kellogg, the executive producer of our show, told me right at the beginning, she says, "Sooner or later something will click. And until it clicks, we're not going to rush the decision."
Very wise on the part of Mary. So how does it feel to be sitting in
It feels great. I mean, it's obviously, as you mentioned at the top, Charlie, I mean, this is a show that's really got a place in television history. And I'm from Chicago. I watched Roger and Gene all those years. I never imagined that I'd be sitting in the balcony with Roger, of course. And when I first started doing the show with him, I didn't look at it that way either. And maybe that's one of the reasons why it worked, because I wasn't auditioning for anything in my mind. I was just enjoying the experience, and I'm continuing to enjoy the experience.
Let me talk about the movies. What's good and bad about the year 2000 so far?
Year 2000 has not been a great year for movies. I can make a list of movies that I really thought were good, but in general it hasn't been a great year. Now, we always have hope as we go into the Thanksgiving and Christmas season, because the studios open a lot of pictures late in the year that they think are Oscar contenders, and we're beginning to get some of those, like You Can Count on Me, and The Contender, and Almost Famous, which opened in September. Better pictures are loaded toward the end of the year, but this has not been a great year for movies.
Let me take a couple of those. One, and I'll take you do the first. The Contender.
Contender. This is a frankly partisan film. It's liberal, democratic, I think, in its point of view. Yeah. Joan Allen, you know the story. Sure. She's the senator who was appointed to the vice presidency after the vice president dies in office, and the Republicans lead a fight against her confirmation. I think Joan Allen will definitely be nominated for an Academy Award.
The best performance you have seen this year? I mean, just give me the...
Maybe Michael Douglas. Maybe Michael Douglas in
So
Wonderboy.
He's at the top of our list for Best Actor so far.
And maybe Joan Allen for Best Actress.
Okay.
Yeah,
supporting? Think about supporting.
Oh, that's where you get into the rich characters.
Right.
Well, I think, well, Charlie mentioned Jeff Bridges, and I think his role in The Contender is really a supporting role, even though he's a big star, but it could be the kind of thing...
How do you know Gary Oldman in the same picture?
Gary Oldman.
He was great. I mean,
yes.
if that doesn't get a nomination for Best Supporting Actor, I don't know what
think Jeff Bridges could, absolutely.
Yeah.
There was a movie called Sunshine that came out earlier in the year, a 3-hour epic about a Hungarian family from about 1890 all the way through the 50s, and Ralph Fiennes played all 3 members of the family, the father, the son, and the grandson, and he was terrific. I could see him getting a nomination for Best Actor.
I want to ask about a couple of movies that are out. One is Charlie's Angels. Did a big weekend.
Huge business, and I don't know why. I mean, I guess there are 3 reasons, and they're very nice to look at, but the
Cameron
film itself,
Diaz
and Lucy
Drew
Liu and Drew Barrymore, but I really thought it was a disappointment from start to finish. I mean, even if they were going to make a fun, campy film, they didn't do that. It's not really too sexy of a movie because they wanted to stay with the PG-13 rating. A lot of action sequences with stunt doubles, and it just sort of putters to an end. I never thought it would have had that big of an opening, but people are going to see it.
He's right. He's right. Yeah. I'm glad that people are enjoying it if they are, because I like people to have a good time at the movies. I don't want them to waste their money and feel like they had a bad time, but I didn't see it with that movie.
It was directed by a guy who comes from video, and I mean, making music
video
videos, MTV type stuff,
yeah.
And it looks like an extended video, and it's about that deep.
I'll close with this only because before we sat down, you think that what's happening in Florida is the most wonderful expression of American democracy.
People say, look how it makes us look overseas. I think, Charlie, it makes us look great overseas. When 3 members of that election board in Palm Beach can stand up there and have a press conference in the bright sun and decide what to do about those ballots, and the whole world can watch.
Yeah.
And it's not because some commissar or dictator is pulling the strings, but 3 ordinary citizens and other ordinary citizens throughout Florida can try to fight this out on both sides for both parties in plain view, a good fight to see who's going to win this election. I think that's the very best thing about democracy.
Thumbs up from Ebert,
It doesn't
right?
make us look bad at all.
Richard, you agree?
I do. It's been a fascinating show, and the great thing, Charlie, is the world is going on here in our country. People are not killing each other in the streets. People are smart enough to know. Look, either way, however this plays out, we're all going to be okay.
There's no hurry. The
We have
pundits
a
keep
president.
saying,
His name is Bill
the
Clinton.
pundits keep saying, well, the people are impatient. I haven't talked to a single person who is impatient. Everyone I've talked to says, let's get the votes
get it
counted,
right.
let's find out who won. No, we're not in a hurry. It's not like, oh, it has to happen by Saturday, or it has to happen, I can't wait another week.
Yeah.
I mean, and if you can't wait another week, I'm sorry, it might take another week. Let's find out who won.
Thank you for coming. Pleasure to see you. Thank you very much, Richard, for coming.
Thanks
Nice
for
to meet
having me,
you.
Charlie.